was the man who took lives and left cryptic messages for the police and the media, only to vanish without a trace? In the late 60s and early 70s, Northern California was haunted by a shadowy figure who would become known as the Zodiac Killer. This unidentified serial killer's identity remains a mystery that has intrigued and baffled investigators for over half a century. But the Zodiac was not just a murderer. He was a master manipulator, a puppet master, pulling the strings of the media and law enforcement from the shadows. He taunted them with cryptic ciphers and letters, daring them to uncover his true identity. Some of these enigmatic messages remain unsolved to this day, a testament to the cunning of the man behind the moniker. The Zodiac Killer is a chilling enigma, a specter from the past that still manages to cast a long and unsettling shadow. Join us as we delve into the chilling tale of the Zodiac Killer. Our tale begins in the late 1960s, a time of change and turmoil, when a sinister figure emerged in Northern California. In the midst of social unrest and a cultural revolution, the underbelly of society birthed a monster. This was the era of the Zodiac Killer. It all started with a series of seemingly unconnected murders. The Zodiac's first known victims were David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. High school students, young and in love, they were found lifeless on a secluded lover's lane on the outskirts of Vallejo, California. The method of killing was brutal and direct. The killer approached the car, shot Faraday in the head, and Jensen, as she tried to flee, was gunned down a few feet from the car. The senseless violence shocked the community and left it in fear. A few months later, another couple, Darlene Ferrin and Mike Mageau, were attacked, again in a car in a deserted location. Mageau survived, but Ferrin did not. The killer struck swiftly, without warning, leaving little evidence behind. The method mirrored the first attack. The victims seemed to have been chosen at random, and once again, the killer vanished into the night. The bodies were discovered by passers-by or law enforcement, often hours after the killer had fled the scene. Each crime scene was a chilling tableau of violence, a grim testament to the Zodiac's cold-blooded nature. The police were baffled. There were no concrete leads, no clear motives, and no suspects. The only thing that connected these crimes was the method and the mysterious letters that would soon begin to arrive. What seemed like isolated incidents soon took a more sinister turn. The killer wasn't finished. He was just getting started. The stage was set for a terrifying game of cat and mouse, a game that would captivate and horrify the world for years to come. This was no ordinary killer. He seemed to revel in the fear and panic he caused, turning his horrifying acts into a twisted game. In the summer of 1969, the Zodiac Killer thrust himself into the public eye, not just through his brutal crimes, but through cryptic letters and ciphers sent to the police and media. It was a chilling escalation that turned a murder investigation into a perverse game of cat and mouse. The first cipher, a jumble of symbols and letters, arrived at the San Francisco Chronicle. The killer's audacious message, "This is the Zodiac speaking." It was a chilling introduction, a name as enigmatic as the man behind the crimes, but it was the postscript that truly chilled the blood. "In this cipher is my identity." Over the next few months, more letters and ciphers arrived. Each one was a tantalizing puzzle, a spider's web of symbols and characters that promised to reveal the killer's identity. But despite the best efforts of codebreakers and cryptographers, the ciphers remained largely unsolved. This was more than a murderer hiding in the shadows. This was a killer who wanted to be seen, to be known. He wanted the thrill of the chase, the satisfaction of outsmarting the authorities. Each letter, each cipher was a taunt, a challenge, a dare. The media and the public were caught in his grip. Every new message was a headline, every unsolved cipher a testament to the Zodiac's cunning. He was the puppet master, pulling the strings, turning fear into fascination, horror into obsession. But as the letters kept coming, so did the murders. The Zodiac was not content with a mental game. He wanted real, tangible fear. And with each new victim, that fear spread, casting a long and terrifying shadow over Northern California. The game was far from over, and the stakes were about to get higher. As the body count rose, so did the killer's ego. He began to taunt the authorities with more than just his letters. This mysterious figure, known to us as the Zodiac Killer, was not content with sowing fear through his horrific acts alone. His audacity grew with each passing day, each unsolved cipher, each life taken. The Zodiac Killer's brazenness was not confined to the shadows. He dared to call the police, his voice distorted, his tone chilling. These calls were not mere pranks, but a show of dominance and control. The voice on the other end of the line was not just a man, but a symbol of terror, a living nightmare that haunted the police and the public alike. In his letters, the Zodiac Killer began to detail his crimes with a chilling specificity. He described the terror in his victims' eyes, the sounds they made, the methodical nature of his attacks. These descriptions were not meant to inform, but to intimidate, to demonstrate his power and control over life and death. In the midst of this reign of terror, the Zodiac Killer began to make threats of escalated violence. He spoke of bombs and school buses, of chaos and destruction. These threats were not empty words, but a promise of future horrors, a challenge to the authorities to stop him if they could. His ego was his driving force, but it was also his Achilles heel. It led him to take risks, to push boundaries, to crave recognition. It's this craving that left behind a trail of clues, a puzzle to be solved. A puzzle that, despite its complexity and the passing of years, continues to captivate and confound. But even as the fear grew, so did the determination to unmask this faceless terror. The Zodiac Killer's ego may have fueled his reign of terror, but it also ignited a flame of resolve in those who sought to bring him to justice. Despite the best efforts of the authorities, the Zodiac Killer remained a specter, a faceless terror that haunted Northern California. For years, law enforcement agencies put their best men on the case, employing advanced forensic techniques and even reaching out to the public for assistance. Yet, the Zodiac, as elusive as a wisp of smoke, always seemed to be one step ahead. The case has seen its fair share of suspects over the years, from Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted child molester who was the police's prime suspect for a while, to Ross Sullivan and Richard Gaikowski. Each suspect brought a glimmer of hope, a possibility that the long-standing mystery would finally be solved. Yet, due to a lack of concrete evidence or a solid connection to all the crimes, these suspects were eventually ruled out, leaving the case as enigmatic as ever. The Zodiac Killer case remains unresolved for several reasons. One of the main obstacles has been the killer's ciphers, cryptic messages that have confounded experts for decades. Only one of the 4 ciphers sent by the Zodiac has been definitively solved. The rest remain a tantalizing puzzle, a code that, if cracked, could reveal the identity of the man behind the monstrous acts. Despite the passage of more than 5 decades, interest in the case has not waned. Amateur sleuths and professional investigators alike continue to pass through the evidence, attempting to crack the remaining ciphers and unearth new clues. The case has inspired countless books, movies, and television shows, cementing its place in the annals of true crime. The Zodiac Killer remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in criminal history, a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity. As we delve deeper into the unknown, we are left with the haunting question: who is the Zodiac Killer? And as the years roll on, this question continues to echo in the minds of those fascinated by the dark side of human nature. The Zodiac Killer left a legacy of fear and fascination that still resonates today. This enigmatic figure has permeated popular culture, sparking a slew of movies, books, and TV shows. His chilling persona and cryptic ciphers have been the stuff of nightmares and the fodder for countless Hollywood scripts. The cipher-laden letters he sent have been pored over by armchair detectives and cryptography experts alike, their unsolved nature only adding to the intrigue. His influence doesn't stop at the silver screen or the printed page. The Zodiac Killer has become a staple in the true crime genre, his unsolved case a tantalizing puzzle for enthusiasts. The fascination with his identity and the desperation to solve his cryptic codes continues to captivate. Who was the Zodiac Killer? We may never know, but his legacy continues to haunt us, a chilling reminder of the evil that can lurk in the shadows.